Carrying the prize.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see. Let's do this. Let's go.
Actually, it's kind of a band.
Where is everybody?
I think they got hit by sleeping breath. Trying to run. Yeah, hit by the landing commuting bus.
The landing commuting bus.
Have you seen that around town? Got their own bus.
Oh, you're talking about this.
Oh, yeah, the apartment complex.
You get some of them hit birds and stuff all the time. That's like a life. So you're lucky if you make it to that 10 minutes. Yeah. Salt Lake Express. Salt Lake Express.
Okay, we ready? Let's go.
Yeah.
It's close enough. Let's start. Let's go. Actually, funny thing, I actually have to leave early today. A funeral in Utah. Yeah, another funeral. Funeral. Funeral season. I know. I say it with a smile. It's like, wait, you're going to funeral with a smile.
You say it with a smile because you're getting closer.
Yeah.
You're able to be there.
Well, we had a great funeral this past weekend, so I'm feeling very good about funerals in general, actually. They're bitter, but they're sweet,
Yeah.
interestingly enough. So okay, yeah. So here we go. I've revamped the home page, as you can see. If you haven't seen it, here's the new home page. We've got today variables and constants. Here's the reading assignment in this column for the textbook. So
We didn't have an assignment.
as you want to read this, you can read this. And this is good preparation material for class, right? No, these are not, I mean, they're assignments in the sense that they're listed here in preparation for today's class. There's not an assignment that says check or quiz or nothing. The reading is up to you to come prepared, Rain. Now, why do you put that face on me?
There's a calendar for a reason. I don't know why.
Whoa.
You can put this.
Just put it on the calendar, brother Chap. That like the calendar and to-do list, that's the thing everybody checks.
No, you gotta go.
You want me to put this entire column in the calendar for you, Rainin?
Just got that click.
Was it broken?
To click through 5 different classes looking for the.
That's what separates you from the
All right, all right. Let's take a vote. Everybody on Rainan's side, raise your hand. Oh,
Whoa.
oh.
Still like that's not a piece for class, you know? We regard this like 3 classes.
I actually, that's not a bad idea. You could copy these into your favorite AI and say, summarize this. Or have you guys done Notebook LM very much? Google's Notebook LM? Create a podcast? Have you done that very much? Whenever I've done that, I've been pleasantly surprised. Google's Notebook LM is actually very good at creating a podcast where there's two people and they're talking about these concepts. And it's actually much more engaging, I feel like, than reading text. So if you want to do that while you're working out or you're on your motor, I know, and then when you would listen to it a lot, the same voices. But it's actually pretty good, pretty engaging. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. But Rainin, for you, I can do that. I will put them in the calendar.
That doesn't, I mean, there doesn't have to be any check. It's nice if there's a mark but like just having it there.
Yeah. No, that's nice. Just so you can see it. That's right, because you got one place where everything is listed. I like that. In fact, I don't know why students haven't asked for this before, Rainin.
I beg for it in every single class.
I don't know why.
I don't know why professors think that it's cool for
Carson's here. What's up?
What's up?
Professors.
Who hurt you?
Great. Will you send me a message on Teams to remind me?
Right now.
That'd be most appreciative. Okay, so for example, looking at this real quick, if you click on Introduction to Objects, like we did last time, this will show you the resources that we use. Here's the access to the textbook. Here's the file we downloaded, installed. Here's the class Zoom link as well. Here's the readings for that day. Here is the legacy web query add-in for Mac users, which I did a little research on. And you should find it in the data tab. There should be a legacy web query in the data tab on Mac if you install this add-in. So it should work, actually. It's on the data tab. Yeah. But what I've also done is I've included the video from class, and I need to upload the file from class today. And I've also included the previous semester's video and file from class as well. So there's 2 videos here from last class. And I'm going to try to do that for all of these classes. So if you want to go back and watch the videos, that's where you can find them. Yeah, and I think that's it. So today we're going to be talking about variables and constants. First, I wanted to finish up from last time. We didn't quite get through everything that I wanted to get through on Monday, so we'll finish that. Then we'll get into variables and constants, and it's a pretty good background. I would say for the rest of the semester, we do a lot of VBA. Today is one of those days where I do a little bit more slides than VBA. In fact, it's like the only day. I think it's the only day in the semester where I actually have some slides. There are some concepts around what a variable is that I think are helpful to see visually. So that's most of the reason why we're doing some slides for this content here. Other than that, the actual next first graded assignment is not until Wednesday the 20th. Create a web query, which is the assignment we started. Yeah, it's a week from today. Wow, 13. That's the assignment we started last time. And that's the first assignment that's due. That's the next assignment that's due. Sound good? After that, there's some more homework assignments. Again, the projects, like we talked about last time, the projects are a little bit more time. So don't wait to start, this fallen angel project until the day of. You're going to need a little bit of time on the projects. They take a little bit of time. And we can talk about more of the stuff when it comes up closer. Okay, so great. Let's go ahead and start with a prayer. We'll dive in and we'll pull up that file from last time that we started. Let's see, where was it? Create web query. Let's do that one. And we'll go to that point. I didn't ask anybody to say the prayer for us. Any volunteer for a prayer?
I got you.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Go for it.
Dear kind of gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for making the offer to you to provide us to come close to you in your Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you for this class, and please help us that throughout this class we'll be able to digest a lot of the knowledge given to us by Brother Chapman, and that we'll be able to be very successful in our VTA skills and be able to soak up everything given to us. And that please watch over Brother Chapman, that as he goes to the funeral today, that will be protected and be able to feel the Spirit as well. We say these things humbly in your blood, Son, Jesus Christ.
Amen. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, very good. So last time, raise your hand if you were able to actually complete the web query assignment.
That's the one we still got.
Yeah. So the textbook, you still got to do the textbook to access the assignment. And notice every time if I click on data and if I go to refresh all here, it's going to go to the website and it's going to pull the quote. So what this isn't is it's not just, you're not just copying the information from the web server to Excel. You're actually creating a connection here, a web query that every time you refresh, it will pull a new quote, right? So just tell your neighbor you got this. You know what I mean? It's neighbor time. Say, neighbor, I think I got this.
I think I got
Eli.
That didn't have the textbook last time.
Yeah.
Just like you how we get the assignment
Yeah, yeah, you bet.
I'm also.
That sounds great. If you go to, for example, create a web query assignment, if I click on this assignment and it takes me to page not found. Okay, that didn't work very well. If I open up the assignment tab and I click on create a web query, let's try this one. Open this in Canvas, right? Load in a new window, right? You got that far? This will take you to My Educator website, where if you've paid for it, you should be able to access this now, right? And this is where you download that file. In fact, who was I saying? I can't remember who I was talking to the other day. It was like, why don't you go back and re-download the file and start from scratch? Um, you're going to want to save this on your computer. Don't forget to, because when you save it, you also have to unblock it, right? Because of the VBA capability, I want to open up the folder where it's at. I'll right click on this file. I'll go to properties and then unblock. And that's, you got to do that before you can do much of anything else. Got to unblock it, which means, okay. And you just have to do that once for the file. Once you've done that once, you don't have to do it again. Yeah, did you get the same error I got? Go to the assignments tab and get it from there. I'll have to fix that homepage. Does that help? That's right. So once it's open, if you come over here to the Atlas, remember how we installed that file last time? That log it's actually a template file, Excel template file. You should have Atlas here on the ribbon. Once you have Atlas, you can click on instruction sheet, and what it does is it tells you what the instructions are for that assignment, right? And here's where the URL was. Here's where it says, hey, don't forget to change the name of your worksheet to quotes. And then after you've completed the assignment, you come over here to submit. And when you click on submit, inside the Atlas tab, it says, it'll ask you to sign in sometimes, but it says, hey, you want to submit for this person? I'll say yes. I get one extra scene here because I'm an administrator. And then it will run through 100%, and then it will spit out your grade for how you did. Does that make sense? And at the same time, it's already uploaded a copy of your file to My Educator and scored you. So now if I go back to my, if you go back to My Educator directly, it'll show you 100% after this moment, right? After it scores you. Does that help? Correct. You don't have to submit the file on Canvas. You don't have to do anything on Canvas. It's all done. Isn't that beautiful? Great, please. Yeah, I do. Yeah, the score, in terms of the score will take the highest one that you submit.
Okay.
The highest score. I thought about changing that. In fact, the default's a little bit different. You want me to tell what the default is? The default is take the highest, actually, I think the default is take the average score of your first two submissions. And what that does is that creates some fire under both submissions, right? I used to teach it that way. I decided to change it to take the highest score of any submission. And what that does is that allows us to get more feedback, not less. So a lot of students like to try it out, like a couple of lines of code, submit, see what happens, see if they get anything right. But they can submit so many times, right? 10, 15, 20, 50. I had one student, I think, submit probably 50 times for one assignment, especially at the end of the class when it's like you're up to like 70% correct and you're looking to get the extra 30%. And it's like, so he just submitted and he was changing stuff. He wasn't just submitting, 70 times, but he was changing stuff and it just, anyway. But yes, so from scoring perspectives, submit as many times as you want. It's going to give you feedback, and the score is going to be whichever submission is the highest score. Sound good? Okay, great. Jamie, and then nice. Should I tell the class what you did last week? Should we not talk about it? Okay, we'll save it. Tom, Hiram, Houston, excuse me.
More on like the code layout, like how you.
Yeah, great question.
You can do the same thing.
Yes. Yes, no, that's a great question. The short answer to that question is one of the great things about this is that it is looking for certain outcomes. And there are different ways to write the code to achieve the same outcomes, right? So there's multiple correct paths. And you're going to get full credit for what that outcome is based on however you write it correctly, right? Um, the challenge there is multiple correct answers in a sense, right? There's multiple correct paths to get the correct answer in the code. There's multiple ways to get the same, the different code for the same outcome. Um, and I think that answers your question, but it also reminds me of an idea I wanted to share as well. This class is a little bit of a different class in the sense that many college classes are based off of memorization. And some people that are really good students memorize really well and just regurgitate that information, and they do really well in college. One of the struggles that I've seen in this class is that people who are really good at memorizing and then, not regurgitating, that's probably not the right word. Uh, for those that are really good at memorizing and then providing that information back, the coding here is very different, right? So each coding project is not necessarily something that you have to regurgitate back there. It's something you have to create. It's something you have to design from what you know, right? So we're going to talk about code and concepts in class. Um, but in terms of the projects, in terms of where the majority of the points in the class are, it's like we have to take what we learned from class to create something new that we haven't done yet. And that can be really challenging, especially for students who are kind of into this idea that if I memorize all this stuff really well and spit it back out, I'll do really well. And that's kind of what higher education trains in a lot of programs, right? A lot of times it's just memorization. But this class, I think, is a little bit different because you have to take what you're learning and produce something new. And that's a little bit frustrating for some. Um, but I thought that was an interesting point to bring up. But that's probably a long way to answer your question. Is that helpful to answer your question? Okay. Please, JC.
We're setting up the, are we supposed to hit yes on all of them?
Oh, the JavaScript one? Yeah. You're talking about when you go into the good old the legacy. Yeah, this is the old um this is the old Internet Explorer stuff. That stuff Microsoft just can't let go, I guess. Yeah, so when you pull up this legacy web box here and it gives you all these script errors, this is the old Internet Explorer, like probably one of the first versions of it. And so it doesn't do JavaScript really well or any kind of scripting at all. So you can just click no until it stops. No, 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 no. It gets a little bit annoying. And then you can just paste this one in here and it brings this up and then you just import it.
Do I need to download Microsoft Excel?
No, 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 you don't even have to, don't install a browser. Don't do it. Turn it off. Turn off your computer, walk away slow. No, I'm just kidding. But you're getting close. Josh knows how to do this. Josh is a pro. Okay, great. One of the things I wanted to finish is going from this to basically a macro. And I know most of you have seen macros before in BA 215. I just wanted to review this briefly, right? Just as kind of a brief review. So, for example, how do we write a macro? What is a macro? Let's just do a macro. I'm going to create a new tab here in my, let me just close this. In fact, let me just do a new file. I'm going to open up a new file. You can follow along if you're not familiar with it. For those that are familiar, it may not be bad to follow along, may be good too. JC, what is going on over there?
Like, you know,
Can Josh fix it? Oh, great. Then it's up to Francis. Francis, can you help those guys? Francis, you just got here, buddy.
Then you put in the link. There's a link on the instruction. This one. Yep.
Oh yeah, see, Josh has got this.
So put it in there.
No, put it up here in the top. Yeah, yeah, just there. Nice. Did you get it? What, you have an error?
I tried to. Sheet.
So,
Oh, where is this file saved on? Do you know what directory it's saved in? It might be that you have to save it in like your desktop or a folder.
Yeah, it's in iCloud,
Okay.
but it's like on my laptop too, right?
Oh, it might not like the iCloud. Yeah.
But
Try a different folder
wait, but I mean like
because it's trying to write a file to that folder.
the thing is like I think this is to my computer. It's uploading to.
Yeah, it might not work with iCloud. You might have to put it in a different folder. Yeah. See if that works. No, I gotta leave early actually.
Yeah, the link that you had, I don't, it doesn't do that.
I was gonna help you, but I'm like, yeah, no. I feel like I still need to click.
I think Rodrigo, do you want to sit over here by the Macs?
Yeah.
There's like a Macs area over here.
Yeah, okay.
It's like a low key.
Leave me, man. It's stuff for me.
Wait, Bro, I don't know, like, I just went to wait, I go to the app store and I download that thing and it's getting the same thing.
But we still have time. Probably if you can't figure it out by Monday, I can look at it after Monday in class, and there's still time before it's due. Does that work?
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it today. It's not due till next Wednesday.
Okay.
We got time. We got time. Okay, great. Any other questions at this point? I think I was answering somebody's question. Any other question? Okay, beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new Excel and I'm just going to create a macro. Okay. And again, some of you have probably done this before. This is that's great. A couple different ways to do it. We have our developer tab here. I can click on record macro here, or I can click on the record button down here. Either way. And it will start to record. It's going to ask me a question. What do I want to name this macro? Let's call it, let's just do a basic profit and loss. I'll type in profit. Keep doing the wrong keyboard. Profit and loss. Let's do profit and loss. How about that? Shortcut key. So when you record a macro, you have the option to create a shortcut key. I love Excel's shortcut. I love Excel's shortcut keys. What if I do Control P? Wait, what is Control P? Not anymore. It's not. This will actually override Excel's Control P. How about that? No, let's not do that. Let's do Control Shift P. If I do capital P here, that separates it out a little bit, right? So I can do a shortcut key, and when I hit this shortcut key, Control Shift P, it will run this macro. That's what this shortcut key is for, right? Yeah, it is kind of cool, right? Little shift. There's 3 places to store the macro. Wow, that's a little loud.
You must hit the date.
Yeah, right. I can store the macro in this workbook. That's like this file. I can store this macro in a new workbook. I can also store this macro in a personal macro workbook. What's interesting about the personal macro workbook is that if I wanted this macro to be available to me, no matter what Excel file I opened, I could store it in my personal macro workbook, which is pretty cool. If I wanted to create a macro that I wanted to run on any or all Excel spreadsheet on my computer, if I store it in my personal macro workbook, it would be available there, which is pretty cool. Most of the time in this class, we're going to store everything in this workbook, which means this file, right? So I'll just store it in this file. I can make a description. Let's do profit and loss statement. And I'll click OK. And now I have to be careful because when I click OK, what happens? It starts recording. That's it. Anything. Now, everything that we do is already recorded in heaven, right? But it's also going to be recorded on Excel. It's even scarier.
That's a lot.
Okay, so I'll click OK. And oh, look what it says. The name doesn't like my name. Fine. No spaces in the macro name. I did. I forgot about that. I'll take the spaces out. I'll try it again. And I'll click OK. And now I am recording. So up here, this button has changed to be stop recording. That's what I'm going to click on when I need to stop recording. But I'm recording. In fact, I have forgotten sometimes that I was recording, and it recorded a whole bunch of stuff once I finally realized it.
And then you can edit the macros.
And I went in and edited the macro and deleted a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm recording. Is it recording this right here? Is it recording this? Let's see. Let me do this. You guys can follow. You guys can just watch me, or you can try to, if you want to follow along, that's fine. I'm just going to show you what's happening in Visual Basic as I'm recording, okay? So here's my Visual Basic over here. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit better. Let's do Microsoft. Where's the one I like? Sans serif. Let's do 18. Let me see if we make this a little bit bigger. Okay, there it is. Can you see that a little bit better? A little bit. Okay, great. And let me clear some of this out so we can see it. Okay, so here is the sub. This is VBA right here in the Visual Basic for applications. I'm recording. I'm still recording. Still recording. And if I come over here and type in, I don't know, let's just type in revenue. What happens? Boom, look at that. It's creating this code as I'm typing, right? This is what a macro is. Macro is recording what I'm doing. Let's do revenue. Let's do expenses. Let's do profit. Okay. And I'll come over here to this cell. In fact, let me zoom in a little bit. If I zoom in, what happens? Whoa, it records my zoom ins, right? I'll do profit equals revenue minus expense. And I'll hit enter. Okay, there we go. This is a macro. We've just created a macro. I haven't typed any code in. It did the code for me. Pretty cool. Notice if I come over here and I just select a cell, but I don't do anything with it, it doesn't really stay in my code, right? I can select multiple cells. It changes the code, but then if I don't do anything and move to another cell, it changes that as well. Kind of interesting. Okay, let's say this is my macro. I think I'm done here. I want to click on stop recording. I can either click down here. I can click up here in the developer tab. So if I click on stop recording, it gives me this one. I don't really need this one. I'll close this record actions. In fact, this is Microsoft's attempt to get people to use less VBA and more JavaScript, it turns out. So Microsoft wants people to use more JavaScript, which is pretty interesting. One of the great things about VBA and Microsoft is that Microsoft goes through a lot of expense and pain to try to maintain backwards compatibility, which means if they upgrade Excel, they are highly motivated to make sure all of our former VBA code still works. Anybody know why that is? What makes Microsoft so motivated to make sure our old VBA code still works?
And that's one of the few selling.
One of the few good points. Yeah, yeah.
Few things.
It's true. That's exactly right. Microsoft knows that if they were to build a version of Excel that doesn't run everybody's past VBA, everybody would go to the next best. They would all go to Google Sheets.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them, right? They would change. Microsoft would go. Excel would bottom out. I mean, it'd be terrible for Microsoft. So they are very highly motivated to use to make it backwards compatible. So the stuff we're writing today, VBA, is still going to be valid, still going to be runnable for like the foreseeable future, right? That's one of the good things about VBA. Okay, so we got this macro here. Let's test this, right? I'm going to open up a new sheet. I'm going to open up my macros here, and I'm just going to run. There's my list of macros. If I run this, what's going to happen? Boom, same thing. Let's open up another sheet. Let's try the shortcut key. Control-Shift-P. What happens? Boom, beautiful. Okay, what about this? Let's open it one more time. What if I start over here? What happens? It messes up. It turns out that we're starting in the active cell. So it's going to read this, and wherever my active cell is, whichever selected, whatever cell is selected, that's where it's going to start the formula. Right. So one way we could fix this is say, hey, why don't we copy this range A2 line and insert it above this line? And what if we say range A2, instead of A2, say range A1, select, right? What we're telling Excel to do is select cell A1 and then do the rest of the code. So let's try that. I'll try this. Here's my cursor down here. If I can come up and run this code, there it is. So now we fixed it. Now it's selecting cell A1 first, and then it runs the rest of the code. Question, comment?
Question. I can't find that the right part.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
In the developer tab?
No, it's mine.
Oh, this part over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this got written for me when I was recording the macro.
Yes.
Are you on? Oh, yeah, let me show you. I think I
I
know.
can use the shortcut key to like do everything that I can find.
Click on module 1. Do you have a module 1 over on the left?
Oh, okay.
That's where it's at. Yep, I forgot to mention that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So this is where that VBA code is in that the modules folder in module 1. Good. I'm glad you asked that. Good. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about from, again, this is all from last class's content, is this idea that there's two things I want you to know about objects. So notice that range A1 is the first thing listed on this line, and then there's a dot after it, and then there's the word select. What does select mean? Select means an action. It says, I want you to do something with this object. Everything in VBA is object-based. There's an object first. So you have to understand when we're thinking about VBA code and we're thinking about how to write code, what's the object? And then what do we want to do with that object? And there's two characteristics of objects. There's methods. Select is a method of an object because it's something you want to do. And then there's also a property. One property is putting something into a cell, right? The value of this cell is a property. The value of A3 is profit, right? That is the second characteristic of a cell. There's methods, which say what objects can do, and there's properties, which describe what an object is. Those are the two things. So there's different kinds of objects in Excel, and there are methods, which means something the object can do, right? Something the object can do. And then there's, what's the other one? Properties. Something that describes the object. Could be attributes, yeah. Great. Those are the two basic takeaways about objects. Okay. There's methods and there's properties. Okay, great. Um, let's do a neighbor check. Neighbor, I got this. The code is good. I understand how to do a macro. I understand how to run a macro. I understand where to save the macro. I think I'm good. Ready, set, go.
How did you get the text?
Oh yeah, over here. This was tools options. If you go to tools options, and then edit formula.
On a Mac.
You know, that is a challenge. To be honest, I'm not sure. That's why I put all you Macs together so that
I'm sure we'll get this. I am the DBA of my document, and I have G1, G6, and G4. Modules has text in it. My sheets don't. They have no coding,
yes,
despite there being themes on the sheet.
yes,
They'll form this.
yes.
What gives?
What gives? What's up with that, Brother Chapman? What are you holding out on us? Yeah, we'll get to that later. It's kind of a more of an advanced topic. The short answer is about 80-90% of the code we do in this class is going to be in the modules. There are reasons to have some code in your sheet. The downside of that is that it's only available to that sheet. So if you want that code to be used on other sheets, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We won't see it. So it gets really confusing if you think it's supposed to be available to all those sheets, but you keep it on one sheet. That's going to be very, very frustrating. But there are some good reasons to have it on the sheets. It's not very common. Yeah. Good question. Okay. One last thought here before I go too fast is if I save this file, I almost save this file as a regular Excel workbook, right? The problem with saving this as a regular Excel workbook is what? If I were to do this and save my file as just save as type Excel workbook, it would not save the VBA, right? It's going to be gone. It would like remove it. And one of the hard things I've seen students do in this class is, oh, I forgot to save my file as a macro enabled workbook. That's what you need. Macro enabled workbook, that's going to save your code. And if you don't do that, it won't save it.
But these are files.
Correct. That's right. In all cases, when you download a file from My Educator, it's already macro enabled. Yeah, I didn't save. This is one that I just created from scratch, and so I hadn't saved it. But yes, good point. They will all be macro enabled from My Educator, which is nice. Good. Okay, great. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, great. I want to take a step here, and I want to go back to the idea of variables. And I think this is going to help us moving forward. In fact, no matter what language or what technology that you use, this is the same concept of variables across the board, which is kind of cool. So let's talk about that for a second. I'm going to bring up some slides and I want to walk through just some basic ideas of variables, okay? Here we go. Variables and constants. What is this? Computer, right? What is this? RAM. What is RAM? Random. Why do they call it RAM anyway?
Yeah, just kidding. Well,
Is that a band?
to my knowledge, it's maybe one of their albums. To my knowledge, as far as I know, like how random generally works is it's like I kind of think of it as like the brain computer, everything kind of goes through there, flows through there at some point, but you need a certain amount of RAM to tasks. Like most computers, most of your computers here, probably 8 to 16 gigs of RAM. There's like desktops will have anywhere from 16, 32, 64, 128, which you're calling because it's really expensive. But yeah, essentially, it's not like storage for like the actual device, but it's more storage for an application. What it's
I like that. What it's thinking about, what it's in his mind, what's in its brain.
do the actual thinking, but then the RAM is like what it's thinking about. So RAM is like second stuff.
Not bad. Love it. Brandon, great.
It's essentially, it's anything the computer can.
That's right. What happens when you turn the computer off? What happens to your RAM? Yeah, nothing's stored there long term. Boom, it's gone. I mean, you could put it, you could close your lid and it goes into hibernation and standby, and it's still there. But when you turn it off, it'll reset the RAM, right? So this is information that the computer can access very, very fast. And what happens is inside of these chips, it's all ones and zeros. Billions and billions and billions of ones and zeros. Isn't that interesting? It's all ones and zeros. That's all it is. So inside of this RAM, it's just space to store ones or zeros, which is pretty cool. A variable is a location in memory. It's a location. So when you think about that from a ones and zeros perspective, there's a location in this computer somewhere inside of this RAM. This has like, is that 4 sticks of RAM? Where they are storing a variable. It's a location. That's the first thing. It has a name where a value of a particular data type can be stored and retrieved. That's it. It's a little bit of a technical, but if you think about this as a location in memory in RAM with a name where the value of that variable can be stored and retrieved, that is a variable, okay? Across all computing languages, across all technology. And probably where we'll spend a lot of time today is this particular data type idea. So there's only particular kinds of variables that store particular types of data. So for example, there's 8 bits in 1 byte, and 1 byte is a variable. 8 bits is like 0 or 1, right? 8 different zeros or ones is 1 byte. Inside 1 byte, for example, we can store the number 0. So inside RAM, we're using 8 bits for 1 byte, and this is 0. Everything is 0. This number is 1. What this means is one of these is equal to the value 1. Okay, what's 2? 2 is one of these is equal to 2. What's 3? There are 2 types of people in the world, those who understand binary and those who don't. Actually, I've seen this where it says those who understand binary and those who have friends, but I don't think that's true. Right? Because what's 2? 2 in binary is saying, yeah, binary is because we have just zeros and ones here. This represents 2. It looks like 10, 1 and 0, but it's actually 2 because it's referring to this bit. 2 is 1. 3 is this one, 2 and 1. Yeah, here's 3. I mean, this is actually how it's stored in the computer, right? They have all these bits and bytes. 2 and 1 is 1, and that resolves to 3. Here's 4. Here is, what is this? 65. We got 1 on 1. We've got 1 on 64. That's going to be 65. What is this? Whoa, how'd you do that? You added that fast, right?
No, I just want to see.
It's doubling every time, right? Here's the pattern. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. What's the next one after this? 256. And you take the -1, then it's 255. Nice.
Wait, why -1?
Uh,
If you need one more bit, you
because if you had one more, it would be 256. Yeah.
there are 256 potential numbers with only 8 bits. Zero.
That's right. That's right. Because zero, because you know what zero is. Zero is when they're all zeros.
Which is like,
So how would you get to 256 then if you've already used all 8 bits?
Ooh, wow, great question, JC. We add a byte. So we had 1 byte that get us up to 255, if these are all filled in. How do we do 256? We add another round of bytes, but it doesn't just go up twice as much. It goes up, it doubles every time. So this number here is 256. We're using 2 bytes of memory, but we're just putting 1 in this position, right? What's this one? 1,000. So we can get to 1,000 this way. And that's it. So one of the data types that you're going to need to learn is a byte. And this is a byte. It's got 8 different bits, and the range is 0 to 255. Okay, that's one data type, right? When we talk about variables, different data types, one of those data types is a byte. The range is 0 to 255. Question?
you know, not even a joke, right?
I believe that. I don't think there is such thing in VBA, but I do believe that. I do believe that. Okay, another data type is integer. So here's a problem. So what this is saying is I can't use anything below 0 or above 255 with a bait data type. So how in the world are we going to do anything else? Well, we have another data type, and another data type is integer. Integer is 2 bytes, right? So how high and low can we go with integers? We can go much higher and much lower with integers, but not as high as you would think. And so I'll show you that in a second. But here's how declaring variables work. If this is RAM, zeros and ones, this is what's inside our RAM. The operating system says, I'm in charge of allocating this RAM to different programs. So for example, from this gray one here, all the way down to this one here, let's say this is like a Word document. I'm using Word to write a program. And I leave that open, and then I open another program, and it allocates me more memory down here for another program. That's how the operating system is in charge of making sure that there's memory for all its programs. Each one of these bytes, each one of these numbers, zeros and ones, has an address. And this is an address in RAM. I think this is the base 10 address of RAM. And this is the hexadecimal address of RAM, which, I don't know if we need to go into too much detail, but it's like an address. We know what that address is in RAM, and you can see they're next to each other. Here's a 48, whatever, this long number and an 8, and then this long number and a 9. And that's literally how the operating system gives memory to any application. That's how a variable is created in VBA, is the operating says, oh, here's an address in RAM. You can have this address for your variable, right? It's a location in memory. So if we write dim x as integer in VBA, we're telling the operating system, hey, I need to store some information in this variable called x, and the information I'm going to store is type of integer. It's going to be a number. And so the operating system goes and says, oh, here's some blank memory space in RAM. I'll give you this much memory. And that is going to be the memory for an integer in RAM. And it's going to give you an address. We don't have to worry at all about the address. That's the good thing here. All we have to know about is what the name is. And VBA and the operating system are going to handle the address in the background. Please.
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
The first one is how can you even tell when a program is running? Like, is there a certain pattern you need to look for? Does it truly highlight like this release, or is this just like how you did it? And then
Yeah, this is just for display purposes.
second one is this So as far as taking numbers and stuff, does it do the same with the alphabet?
Oh, that's next. Man, you're just right ahead of. I mean, we're just trying to catch up, Jesse. That was like Houston today this morning. Houston was like 3 chapters ahead of us. Okay, great. Very good question. So how does this work with letters? But this is how the operating system in your application works. It used to be in the old days, which you guys missed the old days of Windows. It would not be uncommon for Windows to crash once or twice a day. And sometimes those crashings would occur because the operating system would cross the memory lines with other applications, right? It would reserve the same spot in RAM for two applications and it would crash. Boom, wait. And they've gotten much better about that operating system wise, which is really good. But that is part of the operating system's job. First, how do you store a negative value? It's a good question, right? Well, it turns out that the lowest number that you can store in an integer is negative 32,768. And so to do a negative number, they'll start with negative 32,768 and they will add a number to it to represent a negative number. So this is 2 bytes of an integer and the value is negative 31,768. That's how you're storing a negative integer, is you're actually starting from negative 32,768 for an integer. Pretty interesting. This is how you would do -1, right? You're taking this 2 bytes of memory and you're saying 0 here, everything else 1, and that gets you -1. Just the number, -1. Pretty interesting. Here is another one, 0, 32,768, 1 here, everything else is 0. That resolves to, these 2 bytes together is how the computer says, oh, you want 0 right there. And there's other examples, okay? Here's a +1,000. This is what it looks like in memory. Here is 32,767, which is the maximum integer number where you fill all of these up. You're adding 65,535 to negative 32,768 to get this positive number. So what I'm also saying is the range for the integer data type is only negative 32,768 to positive 32,767. Now, are you going to have to memorize these numbers for the final? No. But just know that these are not huge numbers. These are not millions of numbers. They're not even hundreds of thousands of numbers, right? If you can remember about negative 30,000 to positive 30,000, that's good enough for the final. But that's important to remember. There's a couple of homeworks this semester where you might think of using integer, but the range is not big enough. You've got to use something bigger. So what do we use if we use something bigger? There's called a long integer. And this is 4 bytes, okay? We're taking up more memory here just for a number. Roughly plus or minus 2 billion. That's a long integer. And you can just type in long in the code, right? We want to create a variable, data type long, and it's going to be somewhere between plus or minus 2 billion. Another one is we can do decimals. How do we do decimals? We use 2 bytes and then we divide by a number. So we can get 65,535 divided by 10,000 gives us a decimal. It's the same concept. Currency is another data type, roughly plus or minus 922 billion. Pretty accurate. But we're talking about more memory here, right? We're talking about 8 bytes now instead of 1 or 2 bytes. And there's a couple of more. Interestingly enough, the decimal, what we do with the decimal type is we say we allocate these first 4 bits to saying how many decimals do we want in the number, right? So we're saying if we want 1 decimal, we'll say 1 here. We're saying 1 decimal of that number, and then the rest of these are actually the number. If we want 2 decimals, we put the 1 here for the 2 decimals, and all these numbers represent the numerical value here, and so forth, right? Here's 3 decimals. Here is, I don't know, how many decimals is that? Yeah, it's 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. 15, yeah, 15 decimals. That's it. And still 3574. Good. Okay, a couple of more, and then I think that's it for data types. We have the single precision floating number. This is interesting. This goes, that's huge, right? How many digits is that? Some large amount, but it's only precise to 7 significant digits, right? So you only get precision up to the first 7 digits. You don't get all of that precision, and that's 4 bytes. Then, in addition to that, there's a double precision floating number. Huge. Would this cover the national debt? Maybe, maybe.
I think you're covered for us.
Yeah, right. But again, you only have, I think this is 15 precision points on this double. And so those are some of these data types. Another one is true and false. So 0 means false, -1 is true. That's how it's actually stored in a computer. Here is 0, that's false, as a Boolean data type, right? Here's -1, that's true. And by the way, where does Boolean come from? The name Boolean, isn't that a weird word? What's that? Close, not chicken broth. There was a mathematician, 18th century, I think, George Boole, if that's his name. He did a lot of the research on logical thinking, right? If true and true, then what? Or if true or true and false, then what? And so there's this whole area of math called Boolean logic, which is all about true and false. So that's why they have this as the data type, Boolean. And there's just 2 options, true or false in the Boolean. And then a date. So we have date, and then we'll do numbers. How do you represent a date? Interestingly enough, they count it by days from December 30th, 1899. Why December 30th, 1899? Anybody know? Yeah, nobody knows. Who knows? Like, who knows? That was just the date they chose of all dates. And so you can add the number of days from that date to get a date. That's how it's stored in Excel. They just add days to that day. Isn't that weird? How do you do date and time? It's a fractional part of day, right? So instead of the whole number being days, you can say 0.375 gets you to 9 a.m. Pretty cool. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, you want to try it? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You can add in a date and you can say, what's the date? If you add numbers into that date, that's it. And then the fractional number is the time, which is pretty smart, actually, if you think about it, right? Somebody who came up with this, that's actually pretty good stuff. So there's a date variable type, and that's 8 bytes. And again, that starts on December 30th, 1899. And that's how you can store dates. Finally, names and text. Each character, each letter in the alphabet, in fact, even more than each letter, each character, so is mapped to a number between 0 and 255. Okay, so they take this, there's 1 byte, right? These 8 bits, and they say 65. 1 for 64, 1 for 1. 65 is equal to A. Okay. That's the capital A, actually. There's another number for lowercase a, but that's how they represent actual text in computers, is by these numbers. So if we turn this vertical, I'm just turning this vertical, here's what is stored in memory for Adams, comma, space, John. A is 65, lowercase d is 100, lowercase a is 97, lowercase m is 109, lowercase s is 115, etc., right? Those are all of this is actually called ASCII codes, where they've matched numbers to letters. And that's how it's stored in RAM. So when you store one letter, capital A, you're really storing the number 65 in RAM, which is pretty cool, actually. And here is the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, ASCII code. Here's all the letters, right? You have A is 65. This is standard from since the computer began. And you have all these letters, capital letters, and then some symbols and lowercase symbols. And this is only to about 126, 127. After that, you still have up to 255. And if you ever go to a website and it gives you a bunch of garbage on, a bunch of weird symbols on the website, part of that is due because the ASCII code is different after about 127 for different operating systems, which is kind of interesting. So it's pulling the right number, but the codes are different. But these are generally the same across the world, 0 to 127, and then after 127, it gets a little bit different. But that's all from the ASCII code. There's A at 65, etc. And then what we do is we say, okay, let's put 4 bytes in front of the text, and that's going to tell us how long this text is, right? So 11 characters, they say 4 bytes of overhead says we need 11 characters for this text. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's what these 4 bytes are for. So you start with the actual text, and then you say, okay, how long is it? And it says 11, right? 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 8 is 11. Okay, pretty cool. Pretty strong. So a string is the data type that is talking about text, right? A string is 4 bytes plus 1 byte per character, which gives us a string data type. So if I wanted a string, it says, okay, give me some memory. Oh, here's some blank memory. Nobody's using it. Here's the address. Store John Adams in memory. And it would take that many zeros and ones, 15 bytes, and it would store it in memory. It says, okay, here's the address. Here's the address for John Adams. Actually, I think I didn't do these slides, but I'm pretty sure if you were to walk through all of these ones and zeros, I think it does say John Adams in there, which is kind of crazy. That's what it actually looks like in RAM. Okay, so that's numbers and text and dates and times, all about variables, right? We're talking about variables. How do we store information? How do we pull information out? Objects are complex data that have a memory location for each property. So if we take range A2, for example, which is cell A2, objects are stored at a location in memory, just like variables are. So we have the variable stored in memory. We also can store objects in memory. For just the cell A2, here is the information that's stored in memory for just A2. This is the address this is the formula, this is the value, the column, and the row. And there's hundreds of others that are also part of, everything from the background color to the font, to the size, to the height and the width. This is just a little bit of those properties there, but all of that is going to be stored in memory, just like a variable is. Okay, great. So at this point, I think we've covered some good stuff on variables and objects. What are the 2 characteristics of objects? Yes. Objects have properties, right? Here's some properties of an object. And what else?
What was the question?
What are the 2 characteristics of objects? Properties. Methods. He might sit in the back row, friends, but he's got it. He's got it. Yeah, that's right. So objects have properties and methods. Methods are the actions that that objects can do, right? I'm going to do something with this object, like a range A2. I'm going to do something, I'm going to select it. And then there's properties that describe the object. Yeah, range A2. Here's the address of the object. Here's the formula of the object. Here's the value, column, and row. These would all be properties of this object. And I think that's good. I think that's good enough for today. I've probably filled your mind with, hopefully you can go tonight, sleep tonight with dreams of objects and properties and methods in your dreams. Instead of counting sheep, I love it. Count zeros and ones in binary. See if you can put your sheep into binary code tonight.
Are we gonna be looking up data from memory or just our sheets? Like, are we going to the computer?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, great question. We are. So if I were to show you like the quick version of this is what this is going to look like is something like this. So if I go into VBA and I'm just creating this file so it doesn't have any modules in here. If I do dim x as integer, how do you spell integer? Like this. I'm going to build a sub here. I'm going to call this sub Hiram, the Hiram sub. This is the Hiram sub. I'm creating some code from scratch. So I have a sub Hiram, that's the name of my sub. Dim x is integer. This is telling the operating system, hey, I need some memory. Go give me some memory. How much memory do I need? I need an integer's worth. How much memory is an integer? 2 bytes. Yeah, 2 bytes. 32,000, that's the range. So then I can say x is equal to, Hiram, what's your favorite number? 8. Very good. And then, so that's where I'm saying, put the value of 8 into that memory, right? The dim statement here is telling the operating system, go allocate some memory for this. I need to allocate memory. And then the x equals 8 is saying, go put 8 into that space in memory. That's where it actually happens, right? And then what I can do is I can say, well, just print whatever's in X, right? That would be me retrieving whatever is in X in that place in memory, it can print. And if I go over here to the immediate window, the debug function is not something that end users see. It just prints right into here, the immediate window. If I run this code, there it is. I stored 8. I stored that Hiram's favorite number into memory as an integer. I put it into memory right there, and then it retrieved it from memory and spit it out right there. So we both stored it, and then that's all we have to do. We don't have to do the addresses. We don't have to figure out where the allocation of memory is. Thankfully, all that's taken care of. All we have to do is say, create the variable, put something in that variable, and tell me what that variable is. Not bad, right? And then we can do all kinds of stuff with this, right? We can say, x is equal to x plus 8 or something like that, right? And then if we debug print that down here, what's going to happen? That's where we can begin to do a whole bunch of other stuff with the variables that we have, right? It was x, it was 8, we printed that first, then we added 8 to it, and we printed that second, and it came out 16. Very good. Good question.
When it comes to like future assignments and future projects, I'm just maybe even in our didn't realize it's a bunch of what we need to know, like how to explain ourselves in coding, integer bytes and sys.
You'll be able to need to understand what it means, yeah. Yeah, like read it, oh, this is integer, or oh, this is a long, or oh, this is a single, or oh, this is a string, right? You'll be able to need to identify basically what those limit, because you need to know what those limitations are, right? If this is an integer and you are making a program that has, $50,000 worth of inventory somewhere, what happens there? It's going to give you an overflow error. It says, wait, I can't fit 50,000 into 32 plus or minus 32,000, right? So the overflow error is what you get. It doesn't fit. I can't fit it into that space.
Is this something I probably should be practicing with class as well?
Yeah, it'd be really helpful. We'll practice this a lot in class. Yeah. By the end of the semester, some of this will be fairly natural. We're going to create lots of variables this semester. Good questions. Okay, great. I'll let you guys go. I got to go If you want to, you're welcome to read the chapters that are not yet into Canvas, into the calendar for next time. We're going to talk a little bit more on recording and editing macros, more than we've done. For some complex tasks, we'll cover that on Monday. Sounds good? Great. Thank you very much. Oh, there's